So this video's, I've got two purposes here. Number one is to continually replicate showing that 7-3 grid in the beginning and how that pattern starts and how it establishes. But also as I get into Psalms, there's a point where we're taught somehow in the material to just be quiet, be at peace, and I will be there. And that's something that we can do. We can mentally interact with that. And that's what the second part of this video is about. So first of all, here's some things about Psalms. My name is Dan Paulson. Welcome to the video. Here's some things about Psalms that I'm going to start with, then pick up some examples of Abrahamic 3-7 pattern material, then go back to Psalms and cover what it is to sit at peace and be with God. There is something that happens. It's a mental process. You're not physically sitting there with the creator of the universe, but there is something that exists that we're supposed to interact with. If you can get to that point, we got the material interpreted. All right, let's jump into it. All right, if you follow my work, I want to point out some of the commonalities that we see in all Abrahamic material. This is something, there's so many patterns in here that people just don't see. So I'm going to show you some right now. Right off the bat, what I want to do is, let me just read the first few verses. Blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor stand in the way of sinners, nor sit in the seat of the scornful. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law does he meditate day and night. And he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, that bring forth his fruit in his season. His leaf also shall not wither, and whatsoever he does shall prosper. All right, I'm going to stop right there and say, do you see a pattern? I do. You should begin to see patterns. Do you see verse number 3? We've got bring forth fruit in his season. We've got a cycle going on right there. Where did this start? Where did this originate? Day 3 of creation in Genesis. And God created the trees that had seeds that created trees that had more fruit, that gave more seeds, that sort of a thing. That cycle of fruit seasoning going on. So right here in number 3, like we had on day 3, we've got the same thing. Our cycles of things that are happening. This is about us, about our life. Okay, let me refresh a little thinking here. The 3-7 grid starts, yes, Eden, 7. It's right here where 7 is repeated 3 times, and it's in an odd place, but what does it say here? On the 7th day, God ended his work. He rested on the 7th day, and he blessed the 7th day and sanctified it. So 7th is repeated 3 times there, and number repeats is how they're putting the code in. However, what we would not have known is to put the 7-3 grid together right there. Langton, what did he do? He overlapped the first creation story into chapter 2 and made sure to put that 7 right there on 3. It's goofy, isn't it? But if you think about what they're doing and you align those 2 creation stories side by side, 3 and 7 aligns with naked, unashamed, in the Garden of Eden. Are all 3 the same location in the life of a human? Childhood, before first judgment. That's us at the beginning of life with cause and effect, ready to go. Then we begin to gather up other numbers that we're looking at here. But that 3-7 grid is important. That's developed in Genesis. And then we find it continually as we move along. There's some numbers in here that we're going to be looking for that are common. We add some up. I don't want to get into this too big, but you see what I've got here, some numbers that have been designated. First sin is it's a number 8. It's an advance up from 7. 7 is pure in the Garden of Eden, naked. What happens next? First sin. So that's stepped up to 8. 10 was a pure state, step up to 11, that's sin. From 12 here, up 1 is 13. From 20 up to 21 is 1 step up. So these, if something is said this many times, then we know it to be a derogatory thing. For example, if we went to Genesis and you looked up the word Sodom, if you had this memorized, you would know that Sodom is repeated exactly 21 times in the book of Genesis, telling you it fits on this numbering pattern, the code. It's a bad thing. If you had any questions, you don't now. It's a bad thing. In fact, that's not the greatest example because everybody knows Sodom is not a good thing. Well, let's go up here to some good things. What I want to say is that, look at wine, nakedness, naked, things like that. Let's go to Genesis and take a look at a couple of those. And, all right, here we are. What I'm going to do is nakedness. Exactly 5 times. nakedness is a good thing. I want to look at wine. 12 times. That's a good thing. 12 is a good thing. All right, so what are we looking at here? What we have to understand is that we're not talking about physical nakedness or physical wine. We're talking about analogous terms. Naked means I've got nothing to hide anymore. Yep, it's all out. You got nothing on me. I got nothing to hide, nothing to fear. I'm naked. I stand naked before you. That's spiritually naked. That means you got nothing on me. You can't hold anything over me. There's nothing I fear about something that I'm holding or anything like that. That's naked. Wine is how you feel. When Jesus uses the same terms, he says you cannot put new wine into old wineskins. Otherwise, it'll what? It'll ruin the new wine and it'll burst the old wineskin. And you can't put old wine into a new wineskin, same sort of thing. Okay, what do? We put ourselves into those. I am the wineskin. Wine is life experience. I can't put new life experience into my old self. Otherwise, it's going to ruin the new life experience and the old self. It's going to get worse. And I can't put old life experience into my new self. Otherwise, that'll ruin it too. But only new life experience goes into a new self. So then it makes sense. But if you looked at the analogs, you would say, okay, I see now, based on the way they're using them, how many times they're using them, they're actually, it's almost like a dictionary. They're telling you where it fits on the template. You want to have new wine and be naked on the other side of a healing. But that's spiritual, not physical. Okay, we're going to take that numbering pattern and go all throughout Abrahamic material because some magic is being maintained in the background. All right, so going back to Psalms then, what I'm going to say is that I found this by accident, just by poking around and playing with things with the computer, and it emerged. And the more I realized what they were doing I began to know what to look for, and you find it specifically elsewhere. Stumble into it by accident, find it all over. Do you see verse 3 right here? What I'm looking for is an acknowledgement, a nod, a 3 and a 7. What I suspect, because I find it elsewhere, is that there's going to be a word in here that is repeated exactly 7 times throughout the entire book of Psalms, but that I won't know that unless I had it deeply memorized. I've looked ahead. I cheated. See the word planted right there? Let's go see how many times it shows up. There we have it. So there's our acknowledgement to the 3-7, and to show that this is not a fluke, let me just grab a couple of more Abrahamic examples here. All right, Ezekiel is a very complex monomyth that I'm not going to get into. I just want to show this pattern. We get down to verse 3, and we're going to find something. I've done a lot of research in this one. You see the Chebar 8, that's a river crossing. That's a bad river crossing that we're going to have to cross. That appears 8 times. But we need the 3-7 nod, and what do we have? The hand of the Lord. Is that true? Let me go look at it. There we go, the hand of the Lord. So there's our 3-7 acknowledgement in the beginning of the story. Do we know these? Hell no. Let's look at another one. All right, next we have Joshua. It's another complex monomyth. The Lord shows up and the calling happens. That starts right off. And then there's a great river, the Euphrates. There's something that has to cross. Okay, so what I've done here is I've pre-checked this. Now in verse 3 here, there's a soul is repeated 3 times. 37 upon is repeated 37 times. And anytime you compound one of the numbers, like a 30 plus a 7, it's good. If it was a 30 and an 8, that would be bad. But if it's a 30 and a 7, it's okay. Or a 20 and a 7 would be okay. 17 is okay, etc. As long as it ends in a 7 and comes from one of the other numbers. So we get down here to 7, and here's what I find. This is so deep and so strong. So there's a courageous that said 7 times in chapter 7, or in verse 7. But commanded thee and right hand. Both of those. Watch here. I'll take a look. We see that commanded thee is exactly 3 times. And then the other one was right hand. Exactly 3 times. So we see a real generous nod to it here. It's like, well, let's just pile it on. Let's make it so thick. If you miss one, you can catch it somewhere else. But the story is huge. It's a very thick one. Can you imagine knowing this in the days that if you knew it, you couldn't read, you couldn't write, you knew it because you had to have it memorized? We're not close. All right, everybody good on seeing it in the Old Testament? Yeah, it's there, no doubt about it. I said Abrahamic, though, didn't I? So let's go to the book of Mark, the New Testament. What we're going to do is find exactly the same thing. Somebody in the background is keeping something going on. They're building it on a pattern. Right here, we've got 3. I don't have this one modified very much. I'm trying to keep this one a little intact here for other studies. Voice. 7 times right there. So we got a 3-7 acknowledgement on verse 3. Watch down here in verse number 7. There cometh one. Three. So we got a 3-7 up here and a 7-3 down here. That is our code. We see it. There's no doubt this is Abrahamic. Whatever their authorized school is. There's fingerprints in here. I'll speed things up and not look these ones up. You have to use the King James Version if you do this, but you can go do it on your own. We get to the book of John. What do we have on verse 3? Without is repeated 7 times throughout the book of John. And down at 7, the same came. Those 3 right there. Bear, all men, might believe. You will see as you start going through that there are very tightly patterned repeats of words that are for very specific reasons. But the 7-3 pattern in the beginning, it starts in Genesis and it's still going on down here, isn't it? All right, now I've currently stepped into an apocryphal work, Susanna. This was one time included in the Bible. It was never part of the canon. It was just in there, but it was removed. And it's been recommended reading by a variety of people, but it doesn't fit with the biblical canon. So it didn't quite sound right for the religion. At any rate, what are we going to find? We're going to find that whoever does this is doing the same thing. When we get to verse 3, what we're going to find is daughter is repeated 7 times throughout Susanna. Now, Susanna is very short. It's only 1 chapter. And what was it? 64 verses is all it is long, the length of it. Law is said 3 times and daughter is said 7 times. When we get down to verse 7, what we're going to find is that went is repeated 3 times, 7 and 3, and husband is repeated 3 times. Walk is repeated 3 times. So 3 words are repeated 3 times in verse 7. This one's very small and very thick. It's like, wow, pap, 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 pap. Everything is repeated so quickly. It's very dense, but it's small, compact. But guess what? It's following the same pattern. There's a school back there somewhere that we don't know about. Someone's making these that knows something, that they're building them in a certain way. And here's some bonus material for anybody that's advanced. If you go to the Bible and go through Genesis, you find what happens right off the bat. Adam and Eve are in the Garden of Eden, and Eve sins. She partakes of the tree she's not supposed to partake from, the knowledge of good and evil. What would have happened if she had partaken of the tree of life? She didn't. What happens in Susanna is an example of what would happen if, instead of partaking from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, you partook of the tree of life. What you're going to see as it goes on is that where Adam wasn't there and Eve was tempted, you're going to see here that the husband is gone away, she's in the garden, and there's this effort to control her, to overcome her, but she fights it off. She doesn't give in to the temptation, and she's saved from it, and in the end, it's all a good thing. It's a fun story. It's what would happen if you took the other path. Let's show that in the background, everybody at some point was all together. It's only on the outside where people don't agree. There's a secret at a deep level. Okay, we're going to go look at Gnostic material, the Gospel of Thomas. I get into verse 3, and what do we have? I've already done the work here. Fish, yep, repeated 7 times only. Let's see. There we have it. Fish becomes known yourselves. Poverty. 3. The 7 is what I'm looking for there. There's other things going on. Let's go ahead and move on, though, and stick to the 3-7. I get down here to 7, and what do we see? We see that lion is repeated 3 times. Right there in the verse. And it's the only place that it occurs in the entire Gospel of Thomas. So right there we have our 7-3 nod right there. Consumed is repeated 3 times. You know what? If we go to the book of Jonah, you're going to see that on verse 7, every is repeated 3 times, just like consumed is here, and lots is repeated 3 times, just like lion is here. You think the Gospel of Thomas is copying Jonah's, style, technique? Or you look at it and you begin to realize, no, they're all doing the same thing in various ways. Yeah, it's a 7-3 acknowledgement. Do you see it? You can't miss it. Let's go look at Job. I've heard people say this doesn't belong. It's something weird in here. You know what? It fits the criteria. Number 1, we've got number 3 right here, and then we got 7,000 sheep. Adding zeros on, it's okay. 3,000 camels, 500 yoke oxen is repeated 3 times. Okay, so we've got a 3 and 7 acknowledgement there. If we get down to verse 7, we're going to find walking is repeated 3 times. There we have it 3 times. So in Job we have it. And guess what? There's something else up here in verse 2. 7 sons and 3 daughters. Yeah, there's something going on. If you don't see the obvious repeats, I can show you ones that are just totally not obvious at all, but are so consistent. You're like, son of a gun. Yep, that's man prints right there. That's a pattern. That's a story structure. All right, I did that for a reason. What I'm going to do now is come back to Psalms and start looking at a few things. And, just remember the numbers. I'll pull them up here again real quick, but I'll reference them along the way. Blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of scornful. I know right off the bat, I'm going to be looking for analogs. There's something in here. Ungodly. What is that? That's the bad element. 8 times. Well, what do you know? At some point, you get used to what they're doing. All right, so back into Psalms, I went ahead and modified that. And what I'm doing here, again, I'm about ready to wrap up this first part here, but this is showing that there is a consistent pattern that's in the background. We're not supposed to know this. This is in there. This is known. This is top secret. Everybody in the world doesn't know it. Well, there's somebody that knows it. All right, this is all how here, let me... So what's happening then is there's a human life cycle. It starts off at Genesis. We go and have first sin. We have life experience. Life goes on. Life goes bad for us. The world needs to be destroyed. All of that is reference to the human life. The flood, destroying your early self. Noah, yourself, emerging on the other side, naked, in your tent, drunk off your wine. What is this? You have to understand these are analogous terms. They don't mean it. Treat it like a fable. You have to understand what it means. It's not face value. Noah is me or you after we've said, you know what, I've got this issue so bad, I've got to resolve it. You go back, resolve it, you feel good. It had been covering you. It made you feel bad. But now that it's resolved, you're drunk on wine. You've made a new vineyard. You've created a new life experience, and you are, because of that new life experience, you feel intoxicated off of the new feeling, and you are naked. You're uncovered from what there previously was there. Now in the story, what happens? His sons cover him up. That's because we're going to have to go on this cycle over and over again. How many things do you have to resolve? It's going to be more than one thing. So that's how the stories work. And what happens then in the numbering system is that they're using the numbering pattern to maintain a very tight code. 7 and 3, start of life. This is when you're going to be a child and haven't had judged life experiences yet. Step 8, you've now judged life experiences and you are no longer in the Garden of Eden, which means you're no longer happy. Now I've got things to hide. I'm starting to get covered. It's going to move on that way. I'm going to become divided, Cain and Abel. God is going to leave the scene right there at that point. You'll see God disappears and doesn't reappear again until it's time for the calling in a 7. These numbering patterns are holding that pattern right there, but people can't see it because the verbiage of the religion is intentionally intended to control a population, at the same time nesting in there the true pathway to those who can find it, to the rare people who can find it. That's what we're doing here. You know what? It's hard to find. We need to understand something since we don't have it memorized. You see what I'm doing with the computer? Who can do that in their head? Nobody. Nobody. You have to do, unless you have this memorized to the point that you know how many times nouns and verbs have been repeated. We don't know that. But if you look, you'll go, they're repeating nouns and verbs exact amount of times to maintain them on that template. It's a bizarre thing. It's very hard to see. How hard? If we were to look at that micro and macro pattern, here, take a look at this very quickly. I've just grabbed these from Genesis. Adam and Eve, that's the 3-7 grid starts chapter, on chapter 3. And then those begin to go out and gather other numbers. They gather up a group of 22 numbers, I think. 6,000 times they're repeated in the Bible. All right, then we get to Abram and Sarai. There's a recycling of a beginning. Adam and Eve were beginning. Now we got Abram and Sarai starting out. Chapter 12. Chapter 12 is one of the numbers that's gathered up, which is going to then replicate. That means 3, 7, 12 all mean the same thing. Beginning of life, male, female, conscious, subconscious. 59, ready to grow. 50 and 9 on the list. 17 for Sarai. Yeah, that number was gathered in the flood. Get to Isaac and Rebekah. Again, we've got a chapter 25. See our 20 and 5 and verse 20. 20, of course, is a good. So we see micro and macro numbering patterns, not just in the verses, but in the chapters. So those are built into the story. And the chapters and verses are helping us identify them. Isaac's name is also repeated 40 times. Oh, I'm sorry. Isaac was 40 years old. Rebekah 30. And Isaac's name is repeated exactly 80 times. So there we have how that, we already talked about the 7 sons and 3 daughters from Job in a completely different book, but we continually see a male-female acknowledgement at a 3-7 tie point. This is where we see a cycle of life. What I'm going to do is show you an example of what I mean there as far as that step, the 7 and 8. Right here in chapter 2, I've got one that's kind of easy to see. Right here we have verse 7. I will declare the decree. The Lord hath said to me, you are my son. This day I have begotten you. So right here on 7, let's talk about what this means. This is a psychological process, and it's being held in a mental hierarchy. So when you read this, the son is what? The son is the conscious mind of every human being. I should say in this story, the son is the consciousness. It isn't always that way. Sometimes the stories hold a husband and a wife. There's different ways of doing it. In this case, in Proverbs right here, that's what son means, your consciousness. The reason is there's a mental hierarchy. The male is going to be in control of the female. Now, this is a difficult thing, but in a patriarchal society, that's what works. So as they're creating the analogous terms in the mind, the male, the female, the conscious, the subconscious, Adam, Eve. Eve is subservient to Adam. Why is that? Eve is a product of Adam's decisions. Eve doesn't run around on her own and do things in the beginning, does she? The inner self collects our memories and our emotion, the emotional state that goes with them. Then, only then does it begin to act out. And every time it acts out, there's pain in childbirth. Okay, so there's something nested in these that are very personal psychological stories that the only way they're going to make sense is to do that. God is the higher awareness. We're going to get there. Right here, I have begotten you, my son. That is every human being becoming conscious right there. Welcome to life. 7. So I might look at this in my head and go, let's see, I will declare the decree the Lord has said to me, you are my son, this day I have begotten you. I would read that as like, okay, this is the beginning of my life. I emerge from the background and I am here now. What's the next step? 8. Ask of me. This is the Lord talking to me. This is the higher awareness. This is where we come from. This is God. This is the one who will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you. Ask of me, and I shall give you heathen for your inheritance, and the uttermost parts of the earth for your possession. Now, that's a weird thing. You look at that and go, God, I don't get that. But it sounds strange. Ask of me, and I will give you heathen for your inheritance. Why would you want to inherit heathen? And the uttermost parts of the earth for my possession. Now, that sounds okay, having a lot the earth. All right, now here's where we have to understand what's going on. We are in step 7, emerge brand new, and we have an opportunity. In what we saw in Genesis, in the beginning of Adam and Eve, this is where first sin happened. went the wrong way, ate of the wrong tree, heathen for thy inheritance. This is us going bad, but it's a different way of holding the same nested teaching, and it's maintaining the 7-8 pattern. From you're pure to now you have opportunity to sin. All right, this next part might seem a little off the wall, but you know what? They're teaching the same thing around the world in different vehicles, different arcs. This is the Tao Te Ching, Chinese. Stephen Mitchell translation. This is right in the very beginning, right in the front. The Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. Okay, now there's something you have to understand. We have to analyze all of these. The Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. What is the Tao, and what is the eternal Tao then? What are we trying to do here? The Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. The Tao is the way, this pathway. The pathway that can be preached is not the eternal pathway. You got to take it yourself. This is a personal mental path. If you're following somebody, it's the blind leading the blind. Here we have it right in the beginning telling us, ready to go? It's your mental path. Here we go. It's not held in a religious, fear-based mechanism. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. What is naming when we come about? When our memories. Once you start developing memories, you're making decisions about life. And you're like this and you don't like that, and this hurts and that sucks and fuck this and all that kind of stuff. You end up with, this is an emptiness in the beginning. There's a void. The unnameable is the eternally real. That emphasizes it. Naming is the origin of all particular things. This is us. Naming is the origin of all particular things. This is us learning. I now know this and I know that. That's the origin of those. For me, this is about me. How much, in a different translation, the named is the mother of 10,000 things. This is the bundle of us. This is what we're going to become right here. Free from desire, you realize the mystery. Free from clinging on to anything in life, you realize the mystery. You flow free in life. Caught in desire, you see only the manifestations. Caught in the things that you've judged, that you've named, you only see the manifestations. You see their cyclical return. See our cause and effect in cycles? Yet mystery and manifestation come from this same source. The source is called darkness. Darkness within darkness, the gateway to all understanding. We turn inward to go find this place. That's God. We're going to go find it. Yet mystery and manifestation come from the same source. Mystery and manifestation, the good and the bad, come from the same place. Doesn't matter. We go back to Psalms. What did that say? I will declare the decree. The Lord has said to me, you are my son. This day I have begotten you. We have emerged from the background. This is us. And ask of me, I shall give you heathen for your inheritance and the uttermost parts of the earth for your possessions. This is ask of me, and whatever you name, you will see the constant manifestation of it. I will give you the bad things that happen for your inheritance. Okay, that's how we interpret them, but they're old and they're thick. And people might go, are you sure about that? You know what, if you treat everything from antiquity in the exact same way, you come up with the same thing, a psychological path. All right, so I'm done with that part right here. All I want to do is say this is starkly man-made. And it's very structured in a way that once you dig into it and learn it, you start seeing there's something very complex in the background that I don't care how good you think you are with the Bible. You would look at this and go, I had no idea that's there. I guarantee it. If you can watch it long enough, you'll go, yeah, okay, something's in there, all right. And you know what? Go through all the books of the Bible. It's a video here. I could do this all day long. How big is it? And it's not just in Abrahamic material. It's in other material as well. The account is global. Okay, so what is this God then? Be still and know that I am God. And you know what? Let's go back and look at something here. If I go pull up be still in Psalms, it occurs exactly 3 times. And let's read them. Stand in awe and sin not. So, yeah, stand in awe, don't sin, don't do anything bad. What is sin? Sin, in this case, means judging, naming. They've got the word sin in there, and that can make it sound like, you know what, I had some bad stuff happen to me, and I'm pissed off, and I hate some people, but I didn't do anything. I'm not sinning. But that is actually sinning because you've named something, and you're going to live through that experience. So if you want to take it from the physical, I'm just going to wait and think about it this way, and I when I die later, I'll get my rewards. You can do that. But if you want to interpret it, you understand that there's more to it. There's a deeper layer, and that these are all analogous terms. So sin does not mean... What it means is I've named something, that I've decided upon something, I've judged something. Judge not, lest you be judged. Sin not, don't judge, don't do any of that, okay? Commune with your own heart upon your bed. What is your heart? Your feelings, your mind. That's going to be a mental process. If you're going to commune with your heart, you better be able to talk. The heart's not going to talk. It's going to pump blood. What is that we're looking at? How do you feel? What makes you feel that way? There we are. That's our heart. Soul, spirit, bundle of memories, the mote in our eye, the ought against our brother. How did we just hear that from Lao Tzu? Free from desire, you realize the mystery. It's caught in desire, you see only the manifestations, and the manifestations are the result of the 10,000 things that we have named, which is the bundle of memories. It's that right there. Don't sin. Don't create the memories. Don't judge things in life. What that really means is this, because we're going to judge life. We're going to live life through this. That's what we're trying to heal from. We're living through our judgments, and that's what hurts. We're living through the way we're continually maintaining our judgments because we haven't resolved them. So what we have to do is find a way to mentally get ourselves in a place where we're not feeling the experience of the memories. And then from a different mental location, from a different mental perception, instead of one in fear where we're living through the memories, we're going to find one where we're detached and living consciously from the higher awareness, and then dealing with the memories. What we have to do is heal the memories in order to live a better life. It's going to change the force, the flow of our life, whether it's God or somebody else, the Tao, the flow, free from desire, free from hanging on to things. You realize the mystery. Poor in spirit, you get the kingdom of heaven. Spirit is what? Spirit is what you feel, your bundle of memories. Commune with your own issues in your own bed and be still in your own place. Okay, what is the next one down here? Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the heathen. I will be exalted in the earth. Kind of coming full circle here. And the third time it appears, blessed are they that dwell in your house. They will be still praising you. Okay, sometimes I think it's helpful to look at parallel teachings from other locations to help us learn something. And what I want to do is read from the Enuma Elish, the Babylonian creation epic, the 7 tablets of creation. There's one spot right here where I'm into it, and there's something called Andaruna. That generation of gods would gather together for wild revels, so they proved bothersome for Tiamat, and their hullabaloo echoed. Okay, I'm going to stop for a second and talk about something that's important here to understand. This is playing out inside the mind. What happens in the beginning is that there's gods that come about to help. That represents the idea that we are becoming something that when we're little, we're pure. As life goes on, we begin to judge things, and that is represented by the early gods. Those early gods have to be destroyed. People are like, oh, they're teaching gods. It's all analogous. They're called gods back then because they're so powerful, they take over. When you're yelling, screaming, something's happening, you're panicking, something like that, it's a god. You might look at it later and go, I don't know why I do that. But when it's happening, guess what? It's in charge. It's a god. So that's what's represented here. And Andaruna is a meeting place of the gods. Where is the meeting place of the gods? All right, let's go back and read it. This is the early self. That generation of gods would gather together for wild revels, so they proved bothersome for Tiamat. That's the inner self. Their hullabaloo echoed. Imagine your thoughts, your mind, frazzled, freaking out, can't resolve it. All this commotion proved unsettling to Tiamat's inner being, and she was bothered by all of their activity within Andaruna. She was bothered by the unsettling of their mind. And there was nothing Apsu could do to mitigate their carousing. Apsu is the god that disappeared, was the creator god. He's not there to help. What do we have in Genesis? God's not there to stop the sons of God coming down and defiling the beautiful women. So what we have, a corruption happening. There was nothing Apsu could do to mitigate their carousing. These are thoughts. These are inner parts of us that our mind, we're losing it. There was nothing Tiamat could do to say to quiet them down. And no matter how troublesome their conduct became to her, regardless of how rowdy things were, she just put up with it. Okay, so this represents an early part of our own self on a psychological, on a life path. We are all on this template. You don't look at that and say, how do I get on it? You look at it and go, what step am I on right now? Because you're going to be on the template. All of us are. All right, the reason I took that deviation to get that kind of gelled in our head a little bit. We come back here and read this again. Blessed are they that dwell in your house. They will still be praising you. Okay? Where is your house? And Aruna. Blessed are they that dwell in your house. The gods that were crazy were raucous. This is saying, blessed are those that dwell in your house. They will still be praising you. So this is a non-corrupt point, but that's how that reads. All right, and for me, it's important to do these because it's important to describe what we have to do. We're wrapped up in these stories, in the verbiage, in a mental hierarchy. So that's what needs to be established here. What is this house? Right now, as you're listening to me and paying attention, if you're focusing on it, that's who's occupying your house at that time. Later on, when you're hungry and you're going to go get something to eat, somebody else is living in your house at that time, is how these stories are written. They're not written like that, going to find food or something. They're iterations of us. If there's two people in here, Cain and Abel, those are both of us. Our split side. Our Cain side kills the Abel side, and what happens right after that is when God disappears. We're losing contact with our higher self. Okay, so let's establish what we have going on here. There's a higher self, which is going to be, I think God is beyond that. There's something beyond, there's a flow in life that is going to happen. So there is a flow in the Tao, or there is graces of God, or something like that. You're going to be somehow living and having an experience based on the nature of what is up here. That's not something that comes into play. That's something that's always in play. Right now, we're all living life and feeling life based on the nature of what we're holding here and where we are on the planet and the way we're perceiving it. Now, there are things that we're in the midst of that we have to get rid of, but there are things that we're past, beyond, that we need to let go of that we haven't. It's natural for us to remember where to be afraid of so we don't have it happen again. So the brain works that way. However, if we get out of that situation, we don't have to keep that fear. We get so complicated that we become this bundle. Our consciousness has had all of these life experiences unknowing, creating memories with the emotional states. And that might be something that you've done and you feel guilty. It might be something that's happened to you and you feel angry, but you still feel shame or something. You don't want to talk about it. Rape, molestation, things like that. All of these, even if you're a victim, you look at it now and sit here and go, I'm going to pull up that memory. How does that memory feel? Take the nature of that memory and understand this, that is how that memory is residing as an energy in you that is seeking out a way to be triggered in the environment with anything else that's going to match with it. It's going to continue to trigger. That's the seed in the garden, and that's the cause and effect. That is how the plant is going to, the seed is going to grow a tree that gives off seed of its own kind, that we're going to get this cause and effect. We're going to live through the cycles of pain. Constant pain in childbirth, plagues, different ways of putting that analogous teaching. Roll a boulder up a hill, it doesn't make it all the way up. Liver getting eaten out, it grows back, it gets eaten out again. Throughout myth and religions, you'll find parts in there where, that's a cyclical pain element right there. That story is holding that part right there that, yeah, I see what's happening. I've got something that I've done wrong that I'm holding on to. Okay, so we get that. So what we have is our consciousness then that is really, has to do all the work. The consciousness feels life. The consciousness is the one that is connected through the five senses to the central nervous system, the feelings, the soul, the cognition, all of that. When we first emerge, as babies, think of this. I just tell people, you know what? You're not self-aware. I don't know if you're conscious. I don't know what that means. We're alive. I'm going to look at myself and realize I know that I was circumcised. I know that for years I cried and, needed to be changed and was abused and things like that as an infant, that I have no mental memory of whatsoever. Not until later on, as I grow and develop enough till you start learning things, does your inner being begin to start coming online. So that first part of us is Adam going on in the Garden of Eden for a while. Eve emerges later. Eve emerges after Adam names things, right? Okay. So after Adam learns A, B, C, D, E, F, G, that's a banana, that's good, I hate that, I like that, and yay, cartoons, then what happens then is now, instead of just this infant that's clueless about what's going on, there's a mind that is beginning to work that has memories and that has joys and things like that. So we've got our conscious and our subconscious. We got a marriage of Adam and Eve right there. We got the marriage of ourself. And as that happens, and we're little children, what we don't know is that we're living through the higher awareness. Do you remember having all the deja vu and knowing just psychic moments, things like that? You look back and go, yeah, there was really an openness. There seemed to be, for me anyway. That comes back. But throughout life, that kind of disappears. But what's happening is that the flow of life and everything is getting clogged up through the judgments that we make in life. And that is where the inner being, the pain, all of that comes about. Now, all right, so as we're going on in life, all of that stuff that we accumulate gets, when we're young, it's a non-issue. Maybe we got a few things, but as we get older, this gets bigger and bigger and bigger until pretty soon we become a frazzled mental state. The land has become full of many people, as many as stars on the sky or sand on the beach. Those are all representative of judgments that live in our mind. All of the people that live there that are corrupt and need to be destroyed. All of those are our thoughts that are now frazzling us. They're in our mind, in the house. Okay, now, here's how we identify okay, so what's happened then is that the higher awareness is still there, our connection is there, and it continually, it taps us on the shoulder throughout life. If you read through the stories, like where Abram and Sarai are, you see God disappear, but you see the angel or visions or something like that happen. When the calling happens and Abraham is changed, is the first time God appears. Okay, God represents that higher awareness, and we lose contact with it. And these connections and visions is when throughout life, when that thing on our shoulder is telling us, you know what, you know the right thing to do and you know how to resolve it. And at the time that is happening, you can sit there in your mind and go, yeah, I don't feel it. I really don't from here. You're right, that's what I need to do. But then what happens? We start struggling. We're going to have a difficulty to leave the past. And it's because of pain and shame and hurt and things like that. When the consciousness then goes back and readdresses the memory, unknowingly, it loses contact with that higher awareness that was emotionally detached, and it goes right back into feeling the emotions, and it goes, I'm not doing this. I don't like it. So we're going to go back and forth between, I know what to do, I'm not doing it. I know what to do, I'm not doing it. So that is in the story as far as Moses and Pharaoh. God sends plagues, says you can go. Then God hardens his heart. God hardens his heart. God's saying, God's helping him make the decision to let him go, and then changing his mind. This is a struggle to leave. This is a struggle to make that change inside. These are not physical. They're not. And they're not just totally bogus. They're structured on a template that are hard to see. Okay. What happens then when God appears? You'll notice that at every calling is when God appears. What's happened is we're at a point where we understand that we have a higher awareness, that we are living through our memories, and that we need to understand some things about that to help us escape that and help us to get out of that life. Basically, we have a memory and we have the emotional state of it, and that emotional state continues to grow and gather other things. That's why we get worse as time goes by. We have to go to the original seed, the original cornerstone, and destroy this temple and build a new one. What we have to do is go back to what started this problem that I have. It really, what it comes down to is this: finding a way to take the way you perceive it emotionally and making that emotion so that it is null. Or if you can turn it to love, you can turn it to love. But that would be the best of all. But if nothing else, it can't reside as a negative. When you pull it up and it's like, God, I hate this, or I feel shamed, I can't tell anybody, then it's going to be, you are living that. That is what is acting out in Andaruna right there. That's the gods that are out of control. And we want to get to a point where the gods are looking at what? God, praising God. The higher awareness is what we're looking at. Okay, when you're in bed at night and you wake up at 3 or 4 in the morning and you're tossing and turning and you can't get back to sleep, every once in a while there's a voice that comes in unsolicited. I think, it seems like it's a part of us, but it's an aspect of us. But it comes in and it tells you something like, hey, there's nothing you can do tonight. You know that. You got to get to sleep. You're tossing and turning. You can't sleep. There's nothing you can do. You got to sleep. And if you pay attention when you hear that voice, and that voice is residing in your conscious state, you don't feel the emotional state of those memories when that voice is talking. But we don't know that. We don't hang on to it. We let it slip away, and we slip right back into the emotional state of the memories, and get back into the turmoil again. We struggle. We can't sleep. All of that. All of that is happening. So, okay. Be still and know that I am God. What does that mean? When you're tossing and turning at night and that voice comes in, stop and go, oh, I have habituated mentally going to the memories. This is going to be a struggle, but what I have to do is begin to habituate staying with the higher awareness, keeping my consciousness going. I'm going to stay detached. I don't feel those memories. Now, there's things you're going to have a hard time escaping. You're going to have to resolve stuff that you're going to have to find ways of working through it. And it's not going to happen, in an instant. Well, it depends on what it is. I mean, sometimes you just become aware of something that you were wrong about and you can change your mind and go, oh, crap, I'm sorry. Other times, oh, yeah, this is a big issue. I've been working on it for a long time and it's not okay. You have to find ways of not having that storage up here, which is an energy-based storage whose nature of it creates the flow and our experience in life, our emotional or our spiritual or our heartfelt feeling. So that is how you be still and know that I am God, is to sit there and go, okay, I remember these things. I'm frazzled. You're not still. You got to stop and go, be still. Let the memories go. Sit here from the higher awareness. Know that I actually am this. But through life, I've experienced life in a way that I had no control over. I judged it not knowing any different, and I am now this hurt freaking product that I need to resolve myself. Now that's why God returns. You now know, oh, the higher awareness is there. This is what is detached from the memories. Go look at an Eckhart Tolle video if you can find it. I would just Google it up. It was his enlightenment. He was sitting there at night talking to himself and asking himself, who I can't live with myself. But he began realizing he's got this mental dialogue going on, that there's like two things happening in there. And who is this that can't live with me? That's exactly it. And the ancients knew that, and they're teaching that. And that's what the true God is right there. That's where healing comes in. When you have an issue that's a memory that has to be resolved, you have to resolve it from the state of the higher awareness, if possible. You don't have to. You can go painful. You can. It's difficult to experience healing. It doesn't feel good. But if you can get over that and heal, it changes your life, and you stop feeling the drag on and on and on. And once you get out of your own pain, you'll look around and go, most people didn't care anyway. This is going to be, you don't want to hurt people in trying to heal. I mean, if you're, I don't know. It's up to each person to do what it takes to make them feel okay. But it's a mental process. And if you're stuck someplace you don't like, it's what we're hanging on to in our minds that creates the internal conflict that radiates into our central nervous system that makes us feel that way. It's like, God, I don't like the way I feel. It's not just like I've got a bad thought up here that I'm worried about. It's like my whole body. It's like, my God, this is a visceral freaking feeling. It sucks. I don't like it. And it's there because of mental conflict. And only in the resolving of that mental conflict and understanding that now that we have the cognition to live through the higher self, we can get there, we can be still and know that I am God. But again, you have to go sit down and do it in your own head. I can tell you from personal experience that I now realize throughout life, the higher awareness was always addressing me. I never knew what it was. I didn't. I engaged with it quite a bit, never having control over it. The consciousness just floating around, going with the physical experience. We're becoming physical creatures. We are. Even though we come from a higher place, we have to develop and learn enough somehow. And wherever you come from is where you come from. You got to figure that out. But then when I started engaging with it, I realized, oh, okay, don't just slip. Stop. Don't go back to the memories. Yeah, sit and talk to this person. No, there's nothing I can do tonight, is there? No, there isn't. It's good you got out of there. Thanks. Yeah, I need to come over and hang out with you a little bit more. Yeah, we'll just sit and relax for a little bit. God, that son of a bitch at work. I can't believe it. I got this, I got that. You find yourself drifting into it and you catch later and go, oops. Hey, man, I left. Sorry. Yeah, it's hard. Keep working at it. You have to it's going to be your dialogue, however that works. It's going to be inside of your mind. You're going to have to get to a point where you now have habituated going, you know what? I'm not going to keep slipping into that stuff. I got to fix things. I got to resolve things. I do. And my life is going to continue to unfold in the way that I'm holding those. So I have to resolve them. But I don't have to constantly live through the fear and the experience, the emotion of it that makes me feel so bad that I can't even do anything, that I just become this quivering mass of, I don't even know what to do, but I'll put on a happy face. Everything's fine. Yeah. Well, anyway, you're familiar with some sort of dialogue that's that way. There would be times I would just be sitting there at night realizing, boy, there's no dialogue I can have with this higher awareness. I don't find Akashic records or anything out there. I do have studies there's things that I think about, there's things that I can ponder. But I would sit there at those times where you would maybe keep slipping into the memories, and then you get into the higher awareness where you're just sitting there quietly. You're just, it's just like a quiet mind. There's no dialogue going on, but you're not going in and experiencing the memories. Sometimes you're just sitting there going, I can't get back to sleep. But if I sit here, right here, it's just quiet. In fact, if you were a study of Eastern meditation, you would reason through that that's exactly what this is right here. Meditation is the idea that you would sit and find a way to clear your mind of thoughts, to sit in quietude. What are we doing right here? We can see that there is a way for that to happen. We're looking for this quietude right here. This is actually a meditation practice to get there and to engage with that higher awareness. We're not taught that in meditation necessarily, but if you look at other material and work on mentally engaging with it, meditation doesn't tell you to be quiet and sit with God. It doesn't. However, this right here, being quiet and sitting with God, signifies that you're supposed to be quiet and find this emptiness in the same way that meditation does. We've got it right here. It's the same teaching. We just don't have it figured out. Sometimes you're just sitting there going, I can't get back to sleep. But if I sit here, right here, it's just quiet. There's nothing. I don't have to keep slipping into the memories. That's how I remember experiencing it. But then, the more you do that, the more you practice it, the more you realize, you know what? You don't have to be asleep for that to happen. You don't have to have that 3 or 4 in the morning. That can happen at any time. Daylight, we engage with that. You just practice it. You find yourself caught up and worried about things. Don't think about what you're going to wear tomorrow. Covering. Going from naked to unnaked. Don't think about what you're going to wear. Don't process the issues that you have. For sufficient are the things of today. Be in the now, sit here now and just go, whew. I do have to resolve those things. I do. I can't just sit here like this and go, I can't not address those. But I don't have to sit here and be so caught up in them that I haven't learned how to look at them, how to view them from a detached perspective, how to understand that they're not me, that they're just a part of my experience that are hurting me. They're anchors, they're chains that are holding me, they're bondages that I have to break. They're things that I'm carrying with me that are continually affecting my life in an adverse manner as I move along in life. So once you get to a point in thinking there consciously, you're doing that from the higher awareness instead of constantly going, I don't know what to do about this. I had this feeling. Instead of just crawling into the mud and being bathed in the emotion of that feeling over and over, experiencing it and growing it, we're stepping out of that going, all right, that puddle's got to get cleaned up. I've got to do something with that. But we have to have a different mindset, and we have to know from here too that we're going to be still blending everything together. We're still going to be having those emotions. But I mean, the healing process is something different. I mean, if you can afford a psychiatrist, that'd be great. I don't think that's very common. A lot of people have mental health issues. That's what this stuff is here. But it's not just about that. It's kind of like The Secret too. You don't just change the life you had, but we're products of the life. So like The Secret tries to teach you, become this and forget about that other stuff. That's wrong. You resolve all of that other stuff and then replace what you want. We're always driving for something anyway. We just don't achieve it. We don't get our desires because we're dragging things with us. So instead of just trying harder and harder while leaving the anchors in place, you remove the anchors. That's what everybody from antiquity said. They didn't say, if you come and leave your gift at the altar and you realize you have aught, screw the aught, leave your gift anyway. They didn't say that. In the Bible, Jesus didn't say that. But that's what, if you put the teaching of The Secret back into cryptic verbiage in Jesus, that's what it would sound like. Yeah. Leave it anyway. Just try harder. Keep leaving it harder. Keep praying harder. And forget about that ought against your brother. Yeah, that's not how it works. You get rich forgetting that stuff, though. See how hard it is? People don't want to deal with it. All right. Well, I hope this was helpful. Psalms is following a common pattern, and it is following a teaching sequence that is going to be on that template numbering sequence that is developed in Genesis. It actually appears in the Enuma Elish. It was developed before the Jews had their hands on it. They may have further engineered it for their own purposes, but that template, that numbering pattern is in the Enuma Elish. Noah's name is said 41 times. He's the called hero. Marduk's name is said 41 times. He's the called hero. Sin 8, bad happens. We go to the Enuma Elish, the bad force, the bad witch that was brought in, more or less, that's not the right term, to create the force was Lady Huber. And Lady Huber's name is repeated exactly 8 times in there. You start looking through it and go, boy, this is all over the place. Someone's in the background got some magic going on. We don't know. Yet it's right in our face. We just don't look at it right. Nobody's downloading it and looking at it with me either. So it doesn't go anywhere. All right. Well, yeah. You got to find your own God. Be still and know that I'm God has to be happening in your head. You got to hear that in your mind, sitting someplace where you go, yeah, from here I don't feel those. I see. Those are just memories and emotions. And when I go experience them, I feel them. But from out here, I don't. I need to get rid of those. You got to do that in your own head, though. It has to happen for you. If it doesn't, it won't. Many are called, few are chosen. You got to enter the narrow gate. Not many people are going to do it. All right. See you in the next video.